All right, hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we are continuing our look at this nighttime commercial. It's in a car. This is the last setup of the day. We have been shooting for 3 days straight. Everybody is ready to go home. Can we wrap it all up? Let's find out. Actually, before we find out, if you want access to all of these videos and a whole lot more content, a Discord community, a back catalog of thousands of podcasts or videos, breakdowns about my own work, about other people's work. You can find that in the link in the description below. Patreon is the spot, and that is what allows me to do all of these videos and do all of this content outside of actually doing the job itself. Okay, let's jump in. Now, in the last video, we saw that we were doing this commercial, right? It's an exterior nighttime commercial. Wasn't supposed to be nighttime, was supposed to be magic hour. Didn't work. Like always, we have already covered the wide shot, the mistakes that we made. Then we did this 2-shot in the last one, and now we're going into the coverage. All right, now this is where, if you have planned properly, and you're like, oh, this doesn't really have anything to do with cinematography, what I'm about to talk about. But it does, if you live in the commercial world. How is this different than the narrative? Or how is this different than any other time we talk about cinematography? Most of the time, it's about, well, the creative side, the artistic side, not the business side, not the, you know, how are you friendly to production like you are friendly to the director? Right? The director's got a vision. You want to pull that off. That's pretty much job number one if you want to continue to get more work. Why? Because very rare is it going to be that the production manager gets you more work. Maybe. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. I'm saying a lot more likely that a director will go to bat for you if you're, I don't know, if they're doing a feature and they're trying to get you on board. That's a lot different than the production manager who's gone from commercial to the feature world, trying to get you on board, right? They don't have quite the same level of pull inside of a production. If the director says, no, we need this person, that goes a lot farther. Also with commercials, it's like directors will take cinematographers with them, or will say, hey, I would like to use this person. That pulls a little bit more weight. Are we playing favorites? Only if you want to be realistic and have a job in filmmaking, especially in the commercial world. So yes, we have to look after the director, but can we do both at the same time? Can both be true? It's like the director shouldn't give a shit about, well, sometimes they do, if they are cut in on the proceeds of the ad. It depends on how the production company runs things. But are they really going to be concerned about going over? Should they be concerned about overtime or gear or crew or budgets? No, they got 10,000 things to do on set to make something that is halfway decent. It's hard enough to make something good when you don't have to concentrate on that stuff. So everybody around the director is like pulling requirements, pulling answers that they have to get away from the director so that they can focus on, hey, is this thing any good? And if it isn't good, how do we rectify it before we move on? Okay, so here, when we're doing a nighttime setup, it's the last shot and the last sequence in a job. We got to be thinking, well, we don't have to be thinking. I mean, it's nice to be thinking. We're going to work from the wide to the tight, just like every other scene that you would possibly do, except for some very strange outlier cases. But what can we be packing up? What can we send away? Who can we remove from the on-set crew and start packing down all of the stuff that we've built out? This is the process. These are ultimately the conversations you have on set. It's like I have been on a set where mid-shot, a producer, and this is when I was doing handheld, right? I got the easy rig on, and we're in this intimate moment of somebody like crying, like, you know, half gurgling in their car, like having a nervous breakdown. And the sound guy is next to me with the boom pole. And mid-shot, he gets a tap on the shoulder from the producer, who the sound guy had never actually met the producer on the job. And mid-shot comes up and goes, hey, we don't need you. You can go. And this is like, you know, about 2 minutes before overtime starts, and the sound guy looks at me like mid-take while this poor actor, you know, is having a fit inside the car, and he just like, you know, takes his cans off and goes, okay, yep, I'll see you guys later. Like, you're constantly cutting people from the, well, you're not constantly doing it. You're trying to look to minimize how fast, like, we can pack up on the way out. Okay, that's not what we're going to talk about, but it will come up because it always comes up on the last setup of the day. You have to decide, when do we start sending the people away and what's the most efficient way to do it? The most efficient way to do it, start with the biggest setup, like we did. We started with the wide. Now, we started with the wide because we wanted to catch a little bit of sunset. Did it happen? No, didn't happen at all. Then we go into the 2-shot, which is the biggest version Why do you go into this 2-shot? Well, because we have to set everything up. Number one, it's good for the director. It's good for the talent to have to run through the entire scene. It's also good for me because it's like, well, what is the overall feel that we can always come back to, this master shot, especially when you're doing vehicle stuff, right? This is a vehicle scene. Then where do we go? We go to the tights, and you can do this a few different ways, right? We have, for this particular setup, normally what you would do in a vehicle scene is you would do the wide, then you're going to do a master shot. You can either do this from the front or from the back. Then what's going to happen is you're going to choose one of these paths. You're either going to choose from the front or you're going to choose from behind, right? You're going to go French overs or you're going to go the traditional, and maybe you punch in for like a single, okay? But doing it this way, this is where you have to communicate beforehand when you're going to do both of these options, because one of these options, well, both of them, are different than the 2-shot that we just did, okay? Now, why is it different from the 2-shot? Well, here we are very wide relative to the 2 talent. We are constrained by where we can bring in the backlight. Why? Because we're in a vehicle, right? Normally, you wouldn't have black head or dark part of the head against the dark part of the fabric in a car. Why? It flattens things off. What are we constantly fighting? Flat. Okay, there's no depth here. Why? Because we got those buckets in the back of the car that we talked about in the last setup, right? See these buckets back here? Saves us in terms of background dressing and not being able to shoot this direction, but not great for lighting because now we can't bring anything in there. You see it flattens off real quick. So when we come here, we're lighting from the side, and what you're doing, rather than like pushing, if this is the camera here facing this way, you don't want to push like directly at them because now we have 0 shape. We're smushing from the front and we're getting no depth. Okay, we want to get sidey, really sidey on the light and scrape across this way, okay? But when we come around to, let's start with the classic coverage. Well, now we don't want to be near as sidey, right? Because imagine pushing level directly at this guy. Well, this is all going to be flat. We're not going to have any shadow at all because we're pushing that side light. Why do I tell you all this? Because we have to change the setup from this shot to this shot. And you're probably like, yeah, Patrick, you have to change the setup every time. You do, but sometimes it's a lot faster than other times. What's a faster setup? Well, definitely this shot to this shot is faster than this shot to this shot. Why? Because now we got to get everything out of the frame. We have to redress and light the background because we just had a stand back there. It's going to be a complete, it's going to be a salata, right? It's going to be a dog's breakfast out there. So we have to decide. In this case, we don't decide. We decide to shoot both. Why? I don't know. We need more variance. Maybe there's a, like you could imagine here selling it. Well, maybe there's a turn in the conversation. Like everything's going good. And then ta-da, like confusion happens when this guy says, you know, I'm actually your brother. And he goes, what? And he goes, yes, I am your brother. And Luke is your father. Anyway, so let's talk about the lighting. That's the switch. We go from this setup to this setup. And how I would do that, just if I were you, and you were like, you saw that the boards were like this, and maybe you're pressed for time, or the schedule is looking a little bit grim. It's like, okay, well, which is the most important? This is a conversation you have with the director. Which is the most important angle? Like the one that we could never do without, because, or the one that you know you're going to use. Because if you know you're going to use it, we can spend, and even if it's as little as, it's like as little as 5 extra minutes. Can we spend 5 extra minutes on this? It's like, I don't know if I'm going to use this one. Okay, well then give me the 5 extra minutes here so that I can get the background level where I want it, or get the scrape, the rake from the background the way that we want it, or I can get this little backlight the way that we want it. Having that little tiny bit of information, at least for me, goes a long way, rather than, well, we might use both. It's like, oh, okay. Okay, that's not as good. Anyway, let's get into the actual lighting here. So does it matter here where we go? We can either do his angle or his angle. My question to lighting would be, well, what have we got? Like we've got a backlight set up over here already for this, and it doesn't look like we have a backlight set up over here. That tells me that we have another stand and light over here. So why don't we just, unless there's some logistical reason that I can't think of, why don't we just take that light, move it down here, and it's going to be, ta-da, this backlight. Okay? See this little backlight? Now, what do you want to do in nighttime exteriors? What do you want to do in general all the time? Is you want to create layers, pockets of light and dark. What you don't want is a giant wash of one level, right? If we had this orange level, because this is supposed to be a street lamp, right? If we had this street lamp and it just washed this entire background. Is that good? No. Why? I'll show you what that looks like. That looks like this. See this out here? Oh, the pin got real small. See that out here? This is one level. I don't like it. I don't like it. If I could change one thing, this is my look to the gaffer when he's like, okay, everything's set up. And you're like, and all of a sudden you don't have time to like, oh, why don't we just create like a little slash of it and then we'll up the ambient in the house back here, right? Because that area, remember, is this. And we've already talked about in the last video how much trouble we had with this area of lighting, not having the right equipment to do the job properly. So this is my look. And he knows, the gaffer knows we don't have time to change it. And I know that he knows that we don't have time to change it. And it's just like, oh, then my next question is, okay, well, can we waste a little bit of it? Can we at least get it down so I don't have to look at it? It's like, ugh. Anyway, what was I talking about? I'm talking about here. So we don't want flat. So we want a break. Now, how do you do this at night? This is just a pro tip for everybody. If you have, let's just do a top down. Okay, so here we have the vehicle, and this is the passenger seat and the driver's seat, right? Here's the wheel. This is the angle that we're shooting is this way, right? We're looking this way. And out here is the background. There's like a tree here, right? What you want to do or what you don't want to do, always think in inversions. What don't we want to do? We don't want a giant flat spot of lighting here. So what you do is you go really far away, you take a light and you point it backlight at the background. And then you have darkness. And then you take another lamp here and you make it a backlight for the foreground here. Okay? If you have lighting in here, if you have it like someone else says, oh, why don't I put another light there and we'll fill in the middle ground. No. No, don't do it. Don't do it. And definitely don't point the lights the opposite way. Okay? We need the darkness. But to feel dark, you have to see the highs as well. We need variance. And that's why we have this thing. Right, that's our lamp that is doing this back coverage. And you're like, Patrick, that doesn't really feel like it makes a big difference. It's hard. I wish I could do the A/B test for you. I wish we could just have everyone on set stand around while I did a little YouTube video, but that wasn't possible. And then what we do is in the foreground, we take that same light that was backlighting or edge lighting for this shot, right? We take this lamp and this thing and we raise it up. And we bring it here, okay? You're like, Patrick, why is this window down? That doesn't make any sense. You said it was going to be raining. I did. The window's down because it's tinted. And tint is no good because we're already fighting for level. Why? Because we have the equivalent of a single Kino tube. You guys remember Kinos? Well, Kinos are a thing of the past, man. What happened to them? Hopefully they're still around. You have one little tube here, that amount of level from the... What are these? The Nan lights, the little Pavo Slims. So there's not a lot of level. Lord knows there's not a lot of level from that background light. Like what would be amazing is if you had, instead of having a light on a stand just here, or that street light, is if you had way over here, you had a giant cherry picker and you had, you know, an M90 just raking along and acting as moonlight. And then maybe you put some props out there so that it backlights more things. And then maybe we get a little rain, like we talked about in the last video. And then maybe we get a little fog, like a fog machine. Ooh, now it's spooky. Now this guy's looking a little bit concerned, right? That's what would be really awesome. Do we have any of that? No, we don't. So we put the window down. And then, of course, you're going to get the question from the radio, from the tent. Hey, should the window be down? And you're just like, yes, it should be. But they look like they're dressed for winter. It's fine. Just leave it. So we have the window down, but not all the way down. Why? Well, it just looks cool, sort of. Anyway, that backlight that was local is now hitting over here. And you question, Patrick, why isn't it hitting the side of his head? Well, we tried. You can see it here. But what ended up happening, and this is a pro tip, anytime you do a vehicle scenario, the number one thing for a vehicle scenario, day or night, the biggest bummer is this thing. The modern headrest, right? The modern headrest is huge. Why do you think you always see in cool movies, like everyone's driving old cars? Because they had like the seats without the headrests. Yeah, of course you're going to die in an accident. But does it look cooler? Of course it does. Get rid of that headrest. And you're like, well, Patrick, why don't you just take the headrest out? And I would say, you are pretty smart. That's exactly what we did here. You see the headrest, except people from legal and compliance, they are also in the tent, and they go, hey, we can't show that on TV. There's no headrest. And this is the look that you give them. Wait a sec. And then they make you put it in for the next one. And then this is the difference. You see this giant blob of a headrest? Take that versus that. Now, which is nicer? Okay, we're getting shape here, which elevates the shape here and gives us darkness in the middle. This, we're getting a giant blob of flat, right? That's not good. You decide. I mean, you tell me, do you like that or do you like that? If you like this one, and not this one, you're going to have a tough time in the field of making images, okay? You have more work to do than just lighting work. Anyway, we've got that black out there. It would have been cooler if this would have edged out his actual hair, because see how it just blends in? I don't like that as much. Now, we tried like a couple different ways you can do this, because the backlight here, what's blocking it is the headrest, and what's blocking it is the pillar in the actual vehicle, like where the door closes. So you can try and move him up, move him back, lean the chair up, lean the chair back. Sometimes you'll put padding behind the actor, so just bump him up a little bit, because what would be even better is if that hair wasn't lined up with the pillar, and it was lined up with the highlight out here, right? Imagine we move him, slide him basically one person that way. So now his head is over here, and his little eyeballs are like this, right? That's his nose. There's his smile. And now we could get that edge light here, that little warm glow down the side. That would be better in my mind. But we weren't able to do that. Same here. You'd like to see like a tiny bit of that orange here rather than just all being flat on him. But for lighting, all we're doing is we're using the same tube setup, or this Pavo Slim thing, whatever it is, just at a slightly backy angle for all of this. Okay, and then the eye light comes from the same Pavo setup here, except it's much closer to the dash now, and it's much lower level than the back edge one. So say the back edge is, I don't know, at least a stop above what the wrap is, because the wrap, we want it to feel a lot more natural, like it just washes over your face. So we're basically creating like a wall of light out here where it's, you know, +1, plus 0.5, at key, 0.5 under, just 1 under, right? So then you get this wrap effect on the face. That's what we're going for. And all up, this is going to be, you know, I'm starting this at, this is probably, like a 1.5 under key anyway, just here in the brightest part. And then you're going to, 2.5 under over here, right? So that's your variant in there. And this is the choice also at night. You can decide, am I going to shoot at 400 for really clean blacks? Am I going to shoot at 1280 because we're low on level and I want more ambient? That choice is yours. I'm pretty sure we shot all of this at 1280 just because. Anything else to add here? That little backlight here, that's here. It was just playing with the height, right? Because we tried high, we tried low, anything to get through the gap that was in the headrest. Where's the headrest? There, right? Like we just lifted this thing as high as it would go. So instead of the headrest being here, we lift it to up here, and then we try and shoot through and just get a little bit of that shoulder. Okay, from there, let's see, we'll switch around to the other side. And the main thing about night exteriors, you're like, oh, it's really going to be about the key light and the edge light. Yes, I would say the key light is the least important thing in nighttime exterior stuff, right? Because oftentimes I will make the same default mistake of like, let's put the key light in the world's most obvious spot and light them up. That's how it feels lit. Normally you want to like take where you would put the key light and then just make it a little bit worse position-wise. You're like, why would you make it worse? Well, then it doesn't feel so perfect. It's like, would you like a little bit more wrap here? Yeah, but then it feels a little bit too manicured. So you make it a little bit more sighty. Again, same setup, backlight with a little bit of push for the eye light. And normally this is very difficult to get an eye light in this scenario because he's looking so far off axis from the light. You know, like light is over here, eye light. backlight is over here, it's hard to reach around to that other eye. It's really just about positioning of the light. It takes a lot longer to set up. And when I say a lot longer, it takes an extra 60 seconds or it takes an extra 2 minutes. And you're like, well, that's not very much longer. It is longer when you have to do 15 different setups and every little minute adds up and people are waiting on you and they want to shoot. So it doesn't sound like a lot now in the calm, cool, confines of your bedroom or your living room, wherever you're watching this. Weird if you're watching in your bedroom. Anyway, it does take a long time. It's way easier and not even necessary for this wrap light to act as a backlight if you are shooting from upstage. Like getting this eye light, that's the key, okay? There's not another light over there that's wrapping. So that is also the benefit of shooting upstage, is that you only need one lamp. Shooting downstage, if you want to get an eye light, you need two. You need the key that's doing the push, and then you need the eye light here. And if you try and keep the eye light at the same level as the key, it's going to be super flat. Right? Super flat is not good. I will say we got way better backlight this time. I think we took the trunks out of the back seat and we pushed the level there, and then we took another lamp and pushed here. So I think this was the addition of another lamp. And then the most important light, I would say, besides the edge light, is the backlight. Like if you don't have a backlight in a night exterior, even if it's going to be super out of focus, like what we're going for are the shapes, the variants, right? And again, you leave it so that there's this big swath of black in between. So deep background gets something, then the edge light fills in that back, push with the key, and hopefully it's a different color, and then get just this little thing here. And these are the things that end up mattering. I would say we could have even gone down lower on this. I would say in the grade, let's just take him down a little bit. It's a little bit distracting. And again, this is, now you see what I was talking about before. See how his head is not on the pillar? See how his head is on the window there? That's way better than this. And these are those little 1% details that end up actually mattering. It's like I would much prefer on black. Then we come here, we'll go to the French overs. Now, if I was going to shoot this scene and you had the director saying like, okay, we got a conversation in a car. What are you thinking for coverage? I would suggest this one. I like this better. I don't like this better for lens size. This feels too wide to me. It would have been nicer in like a slightly longer lens, but the confines of the car meant it was not possible. Like it'd be better if the car was a little bit older. A lot of the modern cars have a low sloping roof in the back, even the trucks. But it would have been better on a slightly longer lens. And then I would take his seat and go way lower, like lower the seat much further down so that his eyes are now like here and we don't get near as much of this flat roof. You can see here, we completely changed the backlight color. This is now blue. Why? I can't even remember. But it happens. There's also no headrest. Is that weird that we're cutting to and from? No. I would say err on no headrest. The only other thing here is that this lamp is separate from this lamp. Okay? And pushing, you can actually see two eye lights here. The two eye lights comes from the light that is pushing over here. Because remember, I said we're constantly wrapping the big things, wrapping the big lights and the big setups because we're getting closer and closer and closer. And the idea is that when we finish on the logo shot, like this is the logo setup, and there's a big logo over here, that we just walk away. We cut this lamp and we cut this backlight, and that's two stands, two lamps. Everybody gets in the trucks, drives away. What that means is here, this wash that is happening, that's not the, that's not the 4K. Or sorry, yeah, the 4K that was here bouncing into the 12x12 for this original wide setup. Right, that's how we did this giant wash over here, is a 4K into a 12x12. We've wrapped that by now. So now we're just basically pointing a light over here, and that's why you have two eye lights. Because that same thing that is pointing over there, we're using the key to get all of this locally, and then that wash, you can actually see it in his eye, which again, this is like that little gap that we're talking about. I like that. If it was not there, it'd be worse. It'd be better if it was even more exaggerated. What else is there? I think that's it, right? I much prefer the French overs in a car versus these two. Although it's not bad. I would just like a little bit more separation in here. And finally we come here. Yes, did we overcook the key? Absolutely. This is probably at key, right? At key at night in a car, it's a little bit too hot. I would say let's wind this way down, way, way, way down. And then here, again, we cannot get an edge on his head because of this headrest. It's like it'd be way cooler if we had a light that could go through the backlight, go through the back window and like blast it at his head. That'd be way better. And in fact, we actually put a lamp in the car to just give me a little bit in the ceiling so that it wasn't this tone everywhere, because that's what it did look like, because we couldn't get any ambient in the car. So we've had to put a lamp in the car. If you're putting a lamp in the car, that's a sign that it's not good. Like if we're shooting for ambient inside of a car, ooh, this is alarm bells. And this always happens on the last shot. You're like, oh, we can wrap everything. And then you're like, oh no, it's not good. You have to quickly scramble. You'll also see that the window is down, right? Why is the window down? I'm pretty sure somebody from the agency said, hey, wouldn't it be better? Like it's distracting with the window up. And I would have thought, well, it's actually cooler. Imagine raindrops, right? Blade Runner, phew, like a flare comes in. Anyway, a guy can dream. Also, the window's down in the back. Is that strange? Maybe. Okay. I think that's it, right? Backlight, have a color difference. Take this down. What is this? Lord knows. This is, if we were actually shooting and we were on set, it's like, okay, we look like we're getting ready to go. Can we start shooting? This is what the first AD comes over and asks. And you're like, no, absolutely not. Like, this is way too hot. We need to get rid of this. And then you come up with like this giant net forest out here trying to bring this down. And then the director comes over and they're like, yeah, we can just take that down on the grade. And you're like, you promise? Because you're not going to be on the grade on some commercial, right? You're going to be in Istanbul. You're going to be shooting something else for Makona Coffee or something. You're going to be like, you promise? Because it's super hot. And they're like, yeah, I promise. You're like, okay, I trust you because you got a good eye. And they're like, always trust me. And then you see it on TV and you're like, okay. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one. Many thanks. And we will see you in the next one. Goodbye.